so wonderful to be back in Santa Fe, one of my soul lands, and to be with all of you. And I thank you for welcoming me back again. Truly beautiful to be here. I arrived in Santa Fe a week ago. I've been doing some traveling in Colorado since then. And it was the first time in a year and a quarter that I'd been in this beautiful place where I lived for 18 years. The longest I've lived anywhere in my life, of 63 years. And the moment I arrived and I stood out in the sunshine outside of the casita my husband Ken and I had rented, I said, I am at home. I feel so at home here. I was rejoicing in the beauty and the light and the architecture and the energy, the frequency that is this enchanting city. Personally, I think it's the most beautiful city in America. I'm very prejudiced. I know I'd get some arguments there. And the last month of my life has been an extraordinary odyssey through all the places that I have lived in the last 40 years. 1 year and a half exception when I lived down in Pennsylvania. Other than that, I have revisited all the places I've been since I was in my early 20s. And I have spent time with all the people still current in my life from all of those many chapters. And it's been moving and special. And I have felt touched to realize the life that I have lived and to look back over the chapters that have unfolded and to see how perfectly aligned each person, each place, each home has been to me for the young woman and then the middle-aged woman and now the young elder woman that I was in each of those chapters. I like young elder, don't you? A friend of mine in her late 70s said, Christine, you're a young elder. I said, sounds good. Because I'm definitely not extremely middle-aged anymore. And as I've visited the Stockbridge, Massachusetts Lake Cottage that Ken and I had for 10 years, where we spent summers while I taught at Kripalu Center and he ran his art gallery there, and then our homes here in Tesuque, where we lived. Canyon Road, my very first art studio casita, where I came at 45 to this land of enchantment and fulfilled my lifetime dream to be a painter. Did that for 7 years. All the places I have been, I have experienced a wondrous thing. By the way, none of this is in my notes. Those of you who teach know, that's just the prop. I've experienced a wondrous thing, and that is I am loved. And that may sound simple, but it's deep. Because I think that's an essential quest most of us have in our life. Where are we seen? And where are we home? And where do we know that we're in the presence of being received? In love. Now, I'm not saying everyone has loved me. Perish the thought. But I've experienced the goodness of each chapter, and even the hard parts, the suffering parts, and I've certainly had my share, have deepened me and gifted me and shaped me like the fire, the iron in the fire that's forged who I am today. And I'm thankful for all of it, all of it. And I also see in a certain way that each place was a vibrational alignment for me, because the homes that we create and the places that we choose to live our lives are always a synchronicity and a vibrational alignment for the man or woman we are at the time we inhabit them. Whether we do this intentionally or unconsciously, we're always inhabiting spaces, communities, love relationships, friendships, and work that are an outer reflection, an outer manifestation of who we are. Not who we wish to be, but who we actually are vibrationally, energetically. And I can see that with compassion for the scared parts of me that have created pain, and appreciation for the depth, with which I've been able to wrestle with and ultimately embrace the challenging times, the really dark nights, and turn them into gold only by getting into them full tilt, because in my world experience, that's the only way. So that has been the last month of my life, and it's been an extraordinary journey, kind of a heroine's journey, if you will. And here I stand before you. So grateful to be back. My husband Ken and I have been visiting Maui for the last 6 years in the winters, anywhere from a couple of weeks to a couple of months. And we've been considering moving there all that time, and we'd always come back to Santa Fe and go, we love Santa Fe. Then we go back to Maui and go, wouldn't it be beautiful to live here in this beautiful island with flowers and turquoise waters all year round? And so ultimately, a year and a quarter ago, we made a permanent, well, nothing is permanent, we all know that. All of us over 50 know that anyway. We made a shift to live there year round. And I realized again that we take ourselves with ourselves everywhere we go, whether it's to have lunch with a friend or take a vacation or move somewhere. There's no escaping the uncooked seeds within us. And we also carry the giftedness in us everywhere. I went to Maui knowing that very well. So I didn't go expecting constant smiles. I just went because I knew the container that is Maui was now calling me forward into a new expression of myself, all of it. And it has been a blessing, just as being here is a blessing. And on my last day in Santa Fe, as the moving truck rolled away with the things we were shipping by barge over to Maui, I went to a hotel for one night before Ken and I could catch our flight the next morning. And I drove through the plaza. It was May 31st. Everything was in flower. It was so gorgeous. And I said out loud, what a wonderful place to live. And then I said, this is really an odd statement. You're moving tomorrow. And then I thought, no, this is a wonderful statement, just to appreciate the extraordinary life I have had here and move on into another extraordinary envelope to hold the all of me that I am, all of it, all of it. So several years ago on one of those trips to Maui, Ken and I were thinking about moving to Maui. We'd done that for several years, contemplated that decision, big decision. And we were so aware of the state of disaster and suffering and darkness in so much of the world, environmentally, politically, human suffering, all of it. And at that time, Santa Fe was, of course, going through such intense forest fires and water issues, smoke in the air in the summers. And I said, where can we move that it's safe? And my wise husband, as we drove up the winding road from Little Haiku Town to where we now live, to Makua, said, the only safety is living in your consciousness. Wow, this is why I am married to this person. Thank you. And so the topic today is coming home to the present. And I feel humbled in remembering that home is always right here. For all I know, this is my last day on earth, and you are home right now for me. Home is always right here. And while I love to create beautiful exterior homes, that's part of my nature, I know that within that beauty, I have suffered and I have found joy. And there is no living room couch that is going to take that away. But the place that we live from inside is what feeds our sense of belonging and home. One time I was flying into Albuquerque from a trip, and I was on the airport parking bus back to my car, and I was sitting across from a woman who looked like she had just been traveling around a lot. And I said, where have you been? She said, India. I've just spent several months traveling around India. And I said, I hear India, while being very beautiful, is also very hard, so challenging in so many ways. The transportation, the water, the suffering, the children begging, all of it, and the constant frustrations with travel. How do you deal with all that? And she looked at me and said, I accept whatever's happening. Well, this sounds so simple. We all know this little dictum, but I just got how often I don't accept whatever's happening and go, if only this was right and that was right. Thank you. And I've remembered that moment with that woman for years. It was powerful for me. When we accept what's happening, we're home. We're here, and we're here in our consciousness. We're here in our consciousness. So I would like to read a beautiful poem by one of my very favorite poets, David Whyte. And this poem is called The Journey. And I believe this poem expresses what we feel as we look back over the chapters of our lives, the things that have been burned up, and what has been created out of the past. And I share this with you now. Above the mountains, the geese turn into light again, painting their black silhouettes on an open sky. Sometimes everything has to be inscribed across the heavens so you can find the one line already written inside of you. The one line you're carrying everywhere, written inside of you. Sometimes it takes a great sky to find that small, bright, and indescribable wedge of freedom in your own heart. Sometimes, with the bones of the black sticks left when the fire has gone out, someone has written something new in the ashes of your life. You are not leaving. You are arriving. You are arriving. That is how I feel about leaving Santa Fe and moving to Maui. Not leaving, but arriving into a new dimension for me in my life, for my values of expression. But all built on what has come before. Ken and I closed on our house in Maui last week. And it was very stressful going through all the paperwork and oh my God, it was a nightmare. It's gotten more and more complicated. And I said to Ken, well, you know, someday when we sell this house, and he went, oh my God, don't say that. And I said, well, it's not that I expect to sell it, it's just that I know nothing is permanent. And we keep saying, right now we're very joyful to be moving into this home in Maui, but we don't know what the future will hold. And if something different shows up that feels even more aligned for who I am then, who Ken is then, we will sell that house and do that. Because that's what life's about, moving towards what aligns to our highest good all the time. I started this month-long epic heroine's journey revisiting of all the life chapters I've lived in the last 40 years with a workshop at Esalen Institute in Big Sur with the teacher Paul Selig, who channels wonderful books on consciousness, which I recommend highly. And it was a 5-day extraordinary transformational retreat with 42 people. And I felt, again, so at home. Big Sur is one of my home places, one of my, I'm home. And particularly in this workshop, I became so immersed in the feeling of how at home I was in the moment of these extraordinary beings that had come to do the journey with me. And when we left, we spent 3 nights at a little rustic inn we like to stay at, Cabins, Deachin's Big Sur Inn, which I highly recommend. And as Ken went into the inn to check in and make sure our reservation was in place, and the woman behind the desk looked in her book, and then she looked up at Ken and said, "You are here." And Ken came out to the car and said, something extraordinary just happened. I checked in and the woman looked in my eyes and said, "You are here." You are. Thank you. Thank you for that reminder. I am here. And we are here. This is where we live, is right here. Every moment in our consciousness, not in a place. All that crumbles, all that becomes the ashes David Whyte speaks of, from which the stick is pulled, to remind us of the message of our truth. We're arriving here in who we are all the time. And whoever I'm with is my community. I've spent many years looking for my community. I think perhaps many of you can relate. Duh, it was here all along, surrounding me. And wherever I am is the community. And even in a store, I'm eating in a restaurant, and the person bringing my food, that's my community in the moment, because I am here. That is who's there. That is the reflection of God expressing as that person entering my experience in that moment to share life with me. And if I miss that moment, I miss myself, and I miss life. And what a shame that would be. There's a line Ken and I have often joked about from the Course in Miracles. It goes like this: 1,000 homes you've tried to build, and all you ever built was hell. And it's a well-documented fact that the stress of creating the perfect home, especially from the ground up for many couples, often results in divorce or the break of the relationship. And indeed, in the 2 or 3 houses that I've bought and renovated in my own marriage of 19 years with Ken, those have been some of the toughest times. Who cares about the doorknobs, really? So we have to keep remembering that it's an inside job. Home is here. It's our consciousness. It's how we're being with and treating the person in front of us. And most importantly, how are we treating ourselves? With love, with compassion, with respect for who we are and the great beings we have become through the journey of our life and all of those chapters. We're very fortunate in America that a lot of us, not all of us, but a lot of us have the freedom to choose where we live. That is a freedom unknown to many people in the world. We can choose that, and what a blessing that is. And we also, as beings of consciousness, can choose the consciousness we inhabit every day. And I find that to be the greatest joy in the world. No matter what's happening or where I am, it's always my choice how I want to respond and the consciousness with which I want to greet what's occurring here and now. So in closing, I want to thank you for having me here today, for being my community, for being who you are in your own unique expression of the divine and the human dancing as one, and just for being present. I'm so happy to share the journey with you, and so glad to be with you. Thank you so much.